nearing the end here. We have one final presentation. And much like we've been hearing about students with a particular set of needs. We heard about freshmen who are transitioning that have a particular set of needs that are different from the rest of their classmates in high school. We've heard about ELL students who have a particular set of needs compared to their fellow students. And right now, when you hear about students with special needs, typically you think of special education, and that's where we're going to end today. So to speak about the frustrations that come up in special education and how we could potentially solve some of them is Letitia Meehan.
So I'm Letitia Meehan. I teach special education. I teach in an intensive needs classroom at Maine Dunstable Elementary. I want everyone to know that I'm about to set a stopwatch because I do appreciate your perseverance here today. But I don't want to.
Now we're good.
That's right.
Watch another 10 minutes.
All right. Then I guess I'll take advantage of it. We'll be here for half an hour. Just kidding. All right. So I want to give you a quick overview of what I'll be doing so you're not in too much suspense. First of all, why I'm doing the study that I'm doing here today. I love this district. I'm a special education teacher who is a special education teacher on purpose. When I was 15, I decided I was doing this. My dad wanted me to be a doctor, a lawyer, a medical researcher, something like that. And I was incredibly stubborn and persevered and became a special ed teacher. I have taught in 5 states. I've taught in various settings, including public schools, private schools, a public special ed only school, and a home education setting in Massachusetts run by the Chelmsford School District. So lots of settings, lots of states. This is the best context I have ever been in. So, love the Nashua School District. We have our challenges. Hopefully we're collegial about solving them. I think this group is a great example of that attempt to be idealistic, to match that up with some realistic research, and to look at improving things and not just complaining about them. So I love this group. But as I've been in this district with lots of para support, I have 8 paras in my classroom. Sorry, ELL ladies. It was unheard of to me when I got here. I mean, I won't even go into it because we're going to keep on track. But lately, the past few years I've been here, this is my 5th year teaching in Nashua, the frustration is just increasing among my colleagues. And seeing that, I said to myself, well, what can I do about it besides complaining or whining? And what I decided was, whoops, sorry, I don't have this kind of a mouse pad because I have an Apple, is I want to go through some kind of process. I want to do some research, and Teacher Leaders Program was a great vehicle supporting me to do that. And what I found were 2 potential responses. So first I'm going to discuss my process and my findings, and 2 potential responses that the school district could work toward to those specific problems. So I started having some conversations, and I really tried to be intentional, and then I saw some persistent themes emerging from my colleagues.
Are these special ed colleagues or just
Yes.
any? Okay.
Special ed colleagues in elementary and middle school level, most of them district-wide program providers, but also some case managers, who, as someone noted earlier, we had case managers who didn't teach and just helped consult, and now most of them, their caseloads haven't gone down, but they're now teaching and consulting. So they're sort of in the same boat as the district-wide teachers. So that brought me more questions. One thing I did not find was bad guys in all this. Like, there's nobody at fault here. Special education, as I know you all experience on a daily basis, is very expensive. We suck a lot of resources. It's very complex. There are a lot of players at the federal level, the state level, who directly impact us every day through their legislation, which directly impacts what I have to do each day. So there are a lot of players, and those players in general have good motives. Even the people who are making us from the state level do lots of paperwork. I really believe they have good motives, and they're acting in a context, a very litigious context, and a context where they want us to be accountable for some progress for our students. So no bad guys here, but we're looking at issues and we're looking at trends and we're trying to find solutions. I did a study using SurveyMonkey, which was generously provided to us by the National Teachers Union. And I created an instrument for my colleagues because I wanted to really get them to lay out for me, among all these issues that are floating around, what are the key issues that are really the most efficient ones for us to tackle that will give us the most bang for our buck. I put 10 items and I had an open-ended one at the end just so I could get some more of that emotional feedback, a little more flesh to the data. And of the 40 special education teachers I invited, I got 30 responses. The demographics I thought were impressive, and I think these demographics are pretty generalizable to all the teachers in our district. 50% of our teachers were in the first 3 years of teaching in Nashua, but 57% reported total teaching experience of over 11 years. So we have highly experienced people working in our classrooms. And nearly 85% had earned a graduate degree, including a couple of doctorates. So lots of education, lots of experience. So we have excellent, highly trained special education teachers in our classrooms. Sorry, I'm going to catch up to my notes now because we're coming to the meat of it. In addition to that, I find my colleagues to be very positive, to be very invested in what they're doing, and to find joy in working with students. You know, I pop into a lot of classrooms because kids transition to me from other schools. They transition to middle school after me. I see a lot of teachers teaching, and when we're actually teaching students, it's a joyful thing. And many of my colleagues have expressed a lot of appreciation for their building level administrators and for our central office administrators in special ed. However, there's all this frustration. And we see people complaining, becoming less positive, and I get fewer smiling interactions and more weeping interactions, to be quite honest with you. And that's because the number and scope of the demands on our teams have become unmanageable through a lot of factors. This is something that I have heard a couple times from colleagues, some of whom are actually leaving the profession. And I feel this too. So, finding number one, 75% of the respondents noted that the DOE paperwork has increased dramatically, significantly impacting our instructional time. All my PD for about the last 14 months has been about paperwork for the state of New Hampshire. And we've had multiple meetings and a lot of extra assignments that we get to do at home. So it's an issue, and it's a frustrating issue for teachers. Finding number two was, I did note that we have a lot of paraprofessionals in this district, and we have a lot of very dedicated. I have 3 paraprofessionals in my classroom who've been there for 15 years. And they're smart women. I have one, I regularly get feedback on 1 or 2 of them from teachers saying, how can we pay for them to go to school? These people need to be teaching. They don't need to be paras. And a lot of our paras do move forward and get degrees and become teachers. But what we were finding is 90% of our teachers feel that their time to train paras has decreased. And this lowers instructional quality, because paras do a lot for us. It lowers time on task, and I will include in there, we have a lot of sick days with our paras, a lot. And I think if you don't feel like you've been empowered, if you don't feel like you know what your teacher wants, if you don't feel like you've been trained, there's not a lot of motivation on a sunny Friday. And this creates less effective classrooms. So I looked at there's a lot of excellent research on both of these topics. I picked out a few things that stood out. I looked at time, how do we spend our time? And one thing that gave me pause was special educators spend 20% of our professional time teaching. 20%, ouch. And 17 of it is spent directly on paperwork. And when I think about all the administrative duties that go around the paperwork, organizing it, getting the meetings, disseminating it to everybody, we now have forms that we have to fill out about how we disseminated the IEPs to everyone in the building, and they all have to be signed. Like, it's just ridiculous. So if you add in the admin and the paperwork, it's more time than we spend teaching, which gave me a lot of pause. But I did find a study that I found extremely helpful. The University of Nebraska-Lincoln has actually developed web-based training. And they found a lot of research from 2001, from the year 2000, talking about the fact that we are not trained in management and supervision skills as teachers. In our teacher programs, we're not trained to train our paras. And we're not trained to manage them. So I get comments like, oh, having all these paras, it's like another caseload. Well, okay. But there's a disconnect happening. So our district does PD for paras, but they don't do PD for teachers in how to train their paras. And they don't give the teachers time to train the paras in their own programs. And my paras can know all they want about behavior management and how to handle children with autism and children with learning disabilities. They get a lot of that. But they also need training in how my program runs. It's very complicated. And so one of the researchers has actually developed, through the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, a free web-based training for teachers in how to be more effective in managing and supervising your paras, which I thought this could be a game changer for the district at a very low cost. I also looked at, I also looked at France in 2008, and he talked about just the fact that we have so much consulting and administration to do. He said special ed teaching positions require substantial amounts of consulting and administration tasks in addition to teaching. Research supports inclusion as one of the most effective ways to help kids be in the real world. We do a great job on inclusion in Nashua, according to the state of New Hampshire. But inclusion requires a lot of consult time from special educators who are also trying to boost basic skills of students. As we've also noted repeatedly, kids are 2 and 3 grade levels behind. My kids, some of them are 5 grade levels behind when they come to me in 5th grade. You know, there's a lot of intensive time required to boost those basic skills, but we also need to give all of you a lot of time consulting to help you manage those kids effectively in your classrooms. So it's a lot to manage, and paras can help us do that. So the first response has to do with all that paperwork, and I would like to explore approaches to delegate the rapidly increasing paperwork. And one of the responses that I found has been successful in a lot of districts is to create administrative assistant positions. Not only would these people help us do the job of the administration, they would help disseminate all the training that I spend my PD on when I should be learning better pedagogy. We could have administrative assistants being trained, and then they could in turn train the pool of teachers they support on the nitty-gritty of crossing T's and dotting I's for the state of New Hampshire and the federal government. So this is a big thing to ask of the district, but I think it could create enough efficiency to make it worth our while. Response number 2, I'm really also very excited about. I think it's a lot more doable in the short term and could give us a great return. We need to develop a process to facilitate the training of paraprofessionals by the teachers that they work for on an annual basis. So train the teachers to train the paraprofessionals. We don't have the training we need yet, but it's free on the web. I think we can pursue it, and we have Paula and Diane who are awesome, who could help facilitate teachers to become properly trained to work with their paraprofessionals. Many districts have done this, and the research is there, and it creates stronger classroom teams that are more effective for our students. If anybody's interested, I put in the link for the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. The other thing I would propose is time be given, and this is a sort of a union issue, but we need to pay our paraprofessionals, and what I have thought about is an extra day before the school year starts that they are paid to be with their teachers. I already have my paras coming to my house in August. I'm feeding them lunch so that I can give them some information, you know, and I know a lot of teachers would be willing. Give me an extra day, pay my paras to come in 6 hours to get trained before that day before school when we have so many meetings and other things to do. Election day, we already pay teachers to come in for an in-service. Let the special educators who've gone through the program have their paras paid that day so that we can train them. And then give us 6 hours of flex time over the course of the school year that we plan with our own paras. You know, we've got 6 or 8 personalities in that room and schedules and family makeups. Let us plan as our one group. When are those 6 hours going to happen? Are they going to be a breakfast before school or a lunch after school, or we're going to try to do it on a Saturday morning? Whatever works for that particular group, give them 6 flex hours where those paras could be paid. And let us train our paras so that they can help us and so that they can help you more effectively when our kids are included in your classrooms. So in short, I have 2 ideas. They need a lot more fleshing out. My goal this year was to figure out what we needed to do. And these are 2 things that a lot of teachers have identified as major stressors. And I think if we can get a couple cohorts together to join teacher leaders next year and really research these 2 options, we can make some progress without continuing to drain funds and continuing to lose teachers who are actually leaving the profession in Nashua. And you can ask me questions at lunch.